At this time, we will call to order the regular City Council meeting on September 24th, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lisa, let the roll call show we are all present. And we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from September 10th, 2018.
I'll move the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. No bills this evening, so we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Chief Collins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would request that old business item number 1 be removed from the agenda to come back at a later date, but as yet undetermined. It's my understanding that City Attorney Wilhelm had conversation with Rhonda Bifano's counsel, Janelle Velarde, and I think the City Attorney could add to that.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilhelm. I spoke with Attorney Velarde today, and she agreed after some discussion we will work together, staff and her side, to go through some of the details of the plan of operations, scheduling of the alterations that they're proposing, and then bring something back to council for action.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Tim?
No.
All right.
Move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. Bob Martin, 695 North Crest Lane, South Lyon. I just wanted to come and share a big thank you to the community and all the departments for all the help at this summer's concert series. It's probably the 10th summer that I've been real involved in, but I can't tell you that one person could not do this alone. It starts in February and March with the booking of bands, which is becoming more and more competitive as more bands are getting to be aware of the beautiful settings that they get to play in here in South Lyon. It stretches into the administration department where the ladies up at City Hall are taking calls and helping me put a concert venue and a poster together. As the summer stretches, or as the spring stretches on and we get to summer, we get ready for our first show somewhere around the middle of June, the 15th of June, and what happens is the DPW kicks in. And what happens there is on Thursday or Friday morning, the DPW is out there mowing and making the grounds just perfect looking. The historical committee, as you know, speaks for itself how gorgeous our mini Greenfield Village is, because that's what it's like that I hear all the time, okay? And then Friday afternoon rolls around as I'm stressing out during the day, hoping for good weather. Somebody from the water department or the DPW shows up, checks the power in the gazebo, and guess what? It's showtime. 5:30, I usually meet the band there, and every Friday at 5:30, without a miss, a gentleman pulls into the parking lot with free ice-cold water, and I'm speaking of Phil Wipert. Well, Phil brings ice-cold water on behalf of the Kiwanis, sets it out there, and then the audience starts showing up. And we here in this South Lyon present a concert series unlike a lot of other communities. We don't just bang out loud rock and roll every Friday night, but what we do is try to give a widespread range so it touches on everybody's likes or dislikes of music. So we have everything from folk music to bluegrass to blues. It's all just wonderful. And all I wanted to do is thank everybody for what you guys do. And it was just awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we will close public comment. Mr. Donahue, let's move on to the discussion of downtown this evening.
Sure. I apologize that I don't have a copy of the report for you because computer problems. Lost my hard drive. So it's not that big a deal. I just lost 2.5 years of everything I've done since I started. But we're going to fix it. So a little tad frustrated. Got the new hard drive this afternoon, so we're up and going. Okay. A couple quick items. Farmers Market is going to be on the Veterans parking lot during Pumpkin Fest, which the market people love it. The vendors, they're high exposure. They're at the end they wanted to be, instead of in previous years they were at the north end. So they're all excited to have that location. So we're all set for that. September 28th and 29th, of course. Pumpkin Fest is going to be great. A lot of work behind the scenes, and looking forward to a great event for downtown. A little change of plans. The building projects are moving forward. As you know, 115 and 117 North Lafayette. They're almost done with the facade. What you see, though, is not the final color on that. They're going to actually be painting the panels on 117, which is the corner piece that has the dark brick. And so that'll be painted in 3 different tones, which will really just, it'll be outstanding. So that'll be done, I was told, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. They're shutting down for Pumpkin Fest, and they had to reorder some items. But that'll be middle of October, should be all set. The owner of 125 to 131 East Lake is going to wait to do the Victorian paint scheme until next summer. It's a very intricate paint scheme, and the painter's worried about the timing, and so to do it right, they're going to wait till summer. So it's a little bit of a disappointment, but the preservation work is outstanding, and so the construction's done, but the paint job will wait till next summer. So it'll be something else to celebrate in the summer. Still hope to have formal announcements on the candy and gourmet foods the first of the year. I think they have their location, but they just have to work out details. And we're close to an antique shop making their final commitment. So I don't like to mention things unless I think the odds are they're going to happen, and I feel strongly that these will happen. But got to wait to sign on the dotted line. Let's see here. Brotoberfest, of course, is coming on us. All the publicity, the posters will be going up this week, postcards. It'll be on Facebook, and then the billboard will be up. I think by next weekend, the billboard will be up, the southbound on Brotoberfest for October 20th, 4 to 9 p.m. The Disguised Ladies Night Out with whoever wants to play in East Lake Street can play while everybody else shops. Ladies' Night, plans are moving forward. Monday morning on the 22nd of October, the Ladies' Night billboard goes up for November 16th, and those plans are moving forward. And all that publicity will be out in the next week or so. Let's see here. We're double and triple checking the data on the new business directory, and we're going to add a couple more checks. All the board members are going to have another check through it, and so we'll get the new business directory out in the next 2 weeks. And the last thing is we're working on a recognition night for all of the improvements and all the things that have happened downtown, as well as we're going to partner it with a kickoff for the fundraising for the Veterans Memorial expansion and relocation. We've been in touch with the veterans, and so we'd like to officially announce it, and it'll probably be officially announced in February. We have half of the funding in of the $30,000, but we want to just give it a real jump start and go formal. So we'll have plans on an exact date in February in the next couple weeks. And one last item. I didn't tell you the primary sponsors of Brotoberfest are the VFW. That'll be running the beer tent, South Lyon Hotel, Kiwanis Club, and KV Sports. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Does anyone have anything for Bob? Councilmember Friesen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, happy birthday, first and foremost.
Thank you.
Second of all, I know I mentioned this 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, but I know we had an issue with, there were two people who had decided that they wanted to be a part of the DDA, and there was conflicting applications with date stamps and things of that nature. Do we work on getting a process in place where we have date stamps, the correct forms, everything's online, everything's visible? What's the status of the process?
Well, certainly I've talked with Lloyd and Lisa, and even mentioned it to the incoming city manager, so that all the boards and commissions have all the same process.
Okay.
And that is something that we need to address and come up with a formal,
Okay.
so that every single board and commission is all treated the same way. And also, I think we talked about the forms that are on for the boards and commissions, some improvements to the actual form. Make them fillable forms. Right now, there's no way they're not on the website. They're not a fillable form. They're all PDFs, and people don't have typewriters. So when you print it off, then you're looking at people's handwriting, and I know that the answer is certainly to print it off and then have it typed. But we shouldn't have to go to a second step. I think while they could certainly submit an attached typewritten or word processed piece, it'd be nice to have a fillable form, and that goes for a lot of our applications and things.
Absolutely. My goal, just from my perspective, would be for the process to be as clear as possible, so anybody who is interested could go on the website, easily access what they're looking for, and easily see what's going on. I guess having the same form, though, may not be helpful, just because many of the committees may have their different bylaws that might conflict. True. So I think this is just a process we need to stay on top of, and we need to just keep an eye on, just to see what's going into place.
The DDA at its last meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, tabled, they wanted to have, because their minutes are available now, their draft minutes, they wanted the city manager and the city attorney to look at the minutes. And so the appointment will be back on their agenda for the October DDA meeting.
Both appointments or one appointment? There's one appointment or two?
Well, the discussion, because
Okay.
I think there's a lot of confusion about the process and the action that the DDA took. We remember last time we talked about it, the DDA's action that they took at the July 12th meeting, they did not have a quorum in August, so they couldn't approve the July 12th minutes. Thus, the July 12 minutes were not on the city's website.
So I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Let's kind of stay on top of the process itself, because the minutes are helpful, but the minutes don't mean anything unless you as a citizen or as a resident go on the website, and if you're interested in joining a committee, you're able to easily access and read what you're looking for. So I guess my request would be that we stay on top of it. I can touch base with you at the next council meeting, and I can even help if you need anything. I would be happy to help in whatever way that I can, just to make sure that, because I'm constantly promoting, hey, join a committee, join a committee. So when I go about in the businesses and try to get in people's ears, like, hey, you'd be great for X, Y, and Z, I don't look foolish when they're like, how do you do this? This is really confusing.
And even though the DDA is a separate authority, it's still, I think the process should be the same. And the way
Yes.
it's advertised should be the same.
Yes, maybe a different form, but advertising, absolutely.
So I think all the boards and commissions, that whole process needs to be tightened up, in my opinion.
Thanks. I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wall.
Hi there. Just a quick question. Just a reminder for Pumpkin Fest. What time does the road closure start on Saturday?
It will be about 9:30.
About 9:30, and all
Yeah.
events are taking
The-
place at Bartlett this year?
Well, the parade will end at Bartlett, and it's my understanding that the craft show will be at Bartlett.
Perfect.
The
Thank
parade will be starting at Centennial this year, which will shorten the route.
you. Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
And if I could add, the fun run will start at 9:55 with the parade starting promptly at 10. But we begin the road closures at 9:30 for safety reasons.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think our residents needed to hear that.
Now, the road closure in downtown is on Friday though, right?
Well, I was speaking to the road closure for the, road closures for the parade.
Okay.
The downtown road closure for the Pumpkin Fest footprint starts on Friday morning.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make that clear. I wanted to make one more comment too in regard to these applications. It needs to be understood that the applications, although timestamp and all that kind of stuff is interesting to have on there and is helpful, every board has the ability to discern whether or not they want to make a recommendation of an appointment to somebody that puts in an application. And it's no different for DDA than it is for any of the other boards. So it isn't an absolute given. Although it's difficult when we have so few people that are actually stepping up to the plate, it still should be understood that there's no obligation by a board to make an appointment recommendation for someone that puts in an application. So
There's a little difference with the DDA has a set of bylaws that follow the state law, and their bylaws show them making a recommendation currently to the city manager.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different, slight. So.
Well, right, but I mean, even that recommendation is still up to them. So, right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we no longer have any old business this evening. We'll move on to new business number 1. First reading of zoning ordinance amendment to amend and add definitions and limit the height of utility poles and other structures in a public right-of-way.
Mr. Mayor and Council.
Tim?
So this is a proposed zoning ordinance amendment to address what it was at the time forthcoming Senate Bill 637, which is a lengthy bill, but does adversely affect the city's ability to control its right-of-way with respect to wireless facilities. And this, if the council recalls, some of you may recall the DAS, or distributed antenna systems, and this is something that I think is going to keep coming up for the city. But nonetheless, in anticipation of that, this ordinance amends certain definitions in the zoning ordinance, adds others, and then places a 40-foot limit with 5 feet above that for wireless equipment. And if you have any questions, I can answer.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
Is this all inherent to the Metro Act?
This is outside of the Metro Act.
It is, okay.
So the telecommunications facility, what do they use? The telecommunications, I'm forgetting the term that they use, but it's typically lines, whether they're strung by pole or underground. This type of equipment, because it's wireless, works on a slightly different model. And, for example, the DAS is simply a pole with an antenna on it. Mm-hmm. And some of it may fall within Metro, but a lot of it falls outside. So the cabinets, the antenna, all fall outside, and this is designed to try and address that. To the extent that we got such an application, we would try and do the licensing agreement that we used for FiberTech.
Well, one of the reasons I'm asking, is there any revenue to the city that's a product of their being able to have our poles or utility poles hosted in the city?
With this ordinance, that's not really a relevant consideration, but to the extent that from a policy decision, if the city were in, and I did not get a clear answer whether the city owns any of its light poles or simply rents them from DTE or has its own poles. So from a policy standpoint, if you own infrastructure within your right-of-way or even outside of it that you would want to make available for wireless facilities by third parties, that's a policy decision you could make, and you could encourage people to locate on your structures, buildings, or poles. Right now, it's my understanding the city doesn't have that, but there are DTE or Consumers Energy and other telephone poles that would be, ideal for a first review of whether to locate, and if not, then they would have the ability to locate within your right-of-way a new pole. There may be cost associated with those things. But if it's not your pole, typically not. If it's a new pole, there may be some ability.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is moving in the direction of everybody's communications. So, as he had said, this is almost certain to be more pervasive over time. So, I'd make the motion that we approve the first reading of the ordinance amending the City of South Lyon zoning ordinance section 102-3 and 102-104 to amend and add definitions and limit the height of utility poles and other structures in the public right-of-way.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. New business number 2 this evening, vacant city property, 318 West Lake Street. That is the former home of South Lyon Rec Department.
Well, I think
Chief.
Lloyd had brought this
Mr. Mayor,
forward,
I
yeah.
could.
Sorry,
add
Chief, I
some-
missed you there.
I could add some background
Thank
to
you.
this. This is the old library building, and then after that, the old Slara building. But it has been city property the whole time. I brought up to council a couple of times in the past the inevitability of having to do something with that building. And I thought it prudent to go out and get a professional assessment of the property, which was done, and then also to consult with Oakland County Equalization. There are various options with respect to that building, having not received a whole lot of input in the past. I put it on the agenda. We could engage a realtor to list the property for sale. We could leave it vacant or designate some other use for the property. So I'm simply looking for some council guidance with respect to disposition of the property.
Councilmember Kivel?
This is a building that has had municipal use the entire lifetime of its being around, which was comfortable in that it was a relatively benign activity going on over there. Sign-up days on Slara's beginning of the seasons was pretty hectic, but typically it was just a modest traffic there, so that wasn't a big deal, and the library was used well, but still, it was a relatively benign thing. This is a residential zone. I personally, my own opinion would be that we should try to make this as affordable as possible for someone to be able to get in there, get a little savings perhaps on the purchase of the property so that they can afford raising that building to put a residential home in there. The neighbors, I know the neighbors quite well, and they're looking for somebody to live in a home next to them, not some kind of a business activity being conducted there. So, even though with the zoning, I don't know if that's even viable, but nonetheless, they would like to have a neighbor that's of like kind.
Well, that's some great insight, actually, knowing that what the people that live right there are thinking. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also know people in the downtown area that would like to see the building possibly go to the Cultural Arts Commission to be used for their activities. I do know people that live in the downtown, and they're not that interested in it being raised and turned into another residential property. I think if the city holds on to the property, they can control its use, and I think that's probably why this building has survived as long as it has, is because the use of the building has not been inconsistent with the adjoining neighbors. And I don't see where the Cultural Arts Commission, and you could actually move the pottery shop. They could rent space, and then she would have a new home to go to, since everybody just absolutely loves her products. So what I would like to do is let the new city manager have an opportunity to explore some ideas, see what other communities have done. I know Brighton has a great community center, culture arts center that they put an old building to use at. And so other cities seem to be doing that. And I just don't want this to be another missed opportunity for the city, because there really are no other options for Culture Arts Commission. And you probably would be able to get a lot of people donating time to get the building in shape and do what needs to be done to turn that into a gallery and possibly mixed uses. And really, it wouldn't have a whole lot of use except for when there's a gallery showing or on special events like Pumpkin Fest weekend, but it would be some place to go. One person said it'd be nice to have a nice conference area in there. I know DPW does not have a conference table area. They could come over here to City Hall, but you can make larger areas because they have a larger staff. So I think maybe a mixed use, possibly, but I'd like the new city manager to tackle it and give him an opportunity to brainstorm with the economics development director on this issue. So I'm not really ready to do anything tonight on it.
I'll say something.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some thoughts on this building. Once upon a time, I worked in there, okay, doing different things. This is a long time ago. I have to go along with Councilwoman Kurzweil to a certain extent. It would be wonderful for cultural arts, but I'm inclined to go along with mixed use because I think it'd be a wonderful place in junction with counseling services, if available. There's quite a bit of room in there. Having a display area for some of our historical things from the Historical Society in our museum. We keep a lot of stuff in the basement that nobody ever sees. Okay, it would be a challenge and a worthwhile reward for the community to see some of those pictures that we've kept out of sight. Okay, I think. Also, a venue for the Wellhead Protection Committee. They always want to have a little display somewhere, but it wouldn't get that much public traffic attention, I suppose. But a multiple use for the time being for this building would be much better, I think, than making a decision tonight to prepare to sell it. It can be very valuable to us, I think, since it's on a main road in the future here. I'm certainly interested in using it for historical display, and I fully agree with cultural arts displays, okay? Parks and Recs ought to be consulted too, see if they've got anything to throw in. Anyway, that's my thought on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
I want to approach it from a little more realistic stand, perhaps. I'd like to know what kind of shape this building's in and what kind of obligation we're going to be signing up for to maintain its structural integrity. I know that we had to replace some windows. I don't know what shape the roof is in. I understand that I thought that there was a problem with the foundation on this building. Okay, I think we've had discussions about the cost of being a landlord. I think we need to be realistic in separating this from a want and a need basis. So I'd like to really understand what kind of shape this place is in before we just go off with one of these visions. So.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Well, do we want to, Councilmember Kurzweil, go ahead.
That's even more of a reason not to do anything tonight. You don't even have any information to make a decision, so I sure wouldn't be listening to it with a realtor if it has some value to people in the community. And that's one of the things that the city's always been, is they've been very short-sighted. They just haven't been able to grasp some of those opportunities that, like I said, other cities seem to be able to do. They seem to be able to raise the funds to accommodate or rebuild or renovate buildings to accommodate some of their commissions. That particularly what Brighton has done has been absolutely phenomenal. So, and Brighton, I think, is very comparable to the size of South Lyon. So it would be nice to have people brag about something here in South Lyon, and because I know they're really talking about that cultural center over in Brighton. So it'd be nice. Not that that's what it has to be, but I just don't think we have enough information tonight to make any decision on anything. So.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Then I'd like to take advantage of the time we have right now and ask the interim city manager to begin having somebody, we have Ken here tonight, direct the building official, maybe begin an inspection of the facility and gather the information rather than let another 2 weeks lapse. Let's get the information, be prepared to discuss it.
I think it's a good idea.
I'm going to make the motion that we direct the interim city manager to have the building official look at the building and assess its structural integrity and the obligations from an ordinance and a compliance standpoint to understand exactly what kind of position we're in financially and what it would take to bring it up to spec if we decide to retain it. Don't make that decision down the road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Quickly, I think that's a great decision too, because when we get that information back, the residents that will be immediately affected by the decision that we decide to make on that will have time to come out and talk to us too. So at that, we'll move on to the budget this evening. Want to have anything on the budget? Okay. Chief Collins will move forward to the manager's report this evening.
I'll make it brief this evening. I have one item that I think might be of public interest. With respect to the water tower and the reconditioning, repairs, and painting. Early this week, I met with Ken Mahalik of the Cultural Arts Commission regarding issues with the paint color and logo readability on the newly painted city water tower. I subsequently inspected the water tower along with Ron Beeson from the Water Department. After the on-site visit, I then met with the project manager, Tom Rounds of Dixon Engineering, and Chief Operator Ron Beeson of the South Lyon Water Department. I asked Mr. Rounds to verify the color of the paint utilized for the tower base and the logo. Mr. Rounds initiated what he called a color complaint with the paint manufacturer, a company called Tnemic. The Tnemic laboratory will be comparing the paint supplied to the Pantone 5405. I want to be sure I had that number right. Color standard. That was the color that was ordered for the base and the script or cursive South Lyon logo. The laboratory will also forward a color sample to the city with an anticipated arrival date of approximately September 28th. In addition to what we'll be getting from the Tnemic laboratory, which is the manufacturer, we will also be getting a color standard sample for Pantone 5405. So the first step in the process of trying to figure out what our options are, because there's some dissatisfaction currently with readability on the logo, is to determine if in fact we got the color of paint that Cultural Arts chose, and if the 5405 that Tnemic sent us matches the Pantone standard 5405. It may or it may not, but at this point it's just speculation on anyone's part as to whether the shade of blue is correct.
Well, thank you for taking the first steps on that. I definitely think we've all heard a little bit of feedback on that. So,
I'll say something.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
We're paying a lot of money for this rehabilitation and paint job of our water tower, and all very well and good. In my case, I can't really read it that well anyway, but when I have made signs, okay, in the past, and made it sure that it was readable for other people in the road, I've always highlighted the outside of my signage, okay, so that it stood out a little bit more, okay, so people could see it and recognize it at a glance. They're not going to stare at it, okay. they want to look up there and see it fast, and they're moving, you know. Okay. If we can, if the colors conform enough and we can highlight it for an accent, it's fine, you know. But I can't imagine it costing any more money. We just recommend to them that they touch it up a little bit, and I think we'll all be happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kurtzwell, did you have something?
Yes, I have a little bit of personal knowledge on this issue. I do recall looking at the swatch when it was selected, and the swatch is not the color that is out there on the tower. So somewhere along the line there was either an adjustment of the color by somebody that didn't like the original color, and this color was then picked, which, you know, anybody, you know, the Cultural Arts Commission is just a commission that recommends. They're not the final say, so maybe somewhere in the decision process a different decision was made because the original swatch or color picked, maybe somebody didn't like it and they wanted it to look more like water. Or there is a mix up in terms of the actual color itself. The reason the color swatch was selected was because of readability from distances. The issue was not, can you read South Lyon when you are right underneath the water tower, or if you are just down the street a little bit. The issue was to maximize the readability of the word South Lyon from the greatest distance, and so that's why the color was picked. You do not have maximum visibility at a distance when you have a very light blue color because it fades into the white of the background of the water tower. So you can see why there was more of a darker color that was originally selected. So I think, you know, I can't speak for the Cultural Arts Commission, but I don't think anybody wants, you know, this to be a huge issue. But if it can be rectified, fine, and if it can't, then you move on. It looks nice the way it is, but it would probably be a little bit more effective readability at a distance if the original color that was selected was applied. So no reason for people to get too upset about it. It is what it is. But the color that's up there now is not appropriate for distance viewing, and it does fade into that white background. No doubt about that. So,
Councilmember Kivel?
I love that logo. I think that downtown logo is really very nice, stylized, modern-looking copy. Unfortunately, it doesn't translate well when you are driving by, and unfortunately, when we have a billboard such as the water tower that we're likely to end up seeing that paint job on for the next 20, 25 years, to try to get contrast, the easiest way to go is you go to a white tower with a black lettering. So it would have been nice to have that darker. If there's something in this where the 5405 turns out to be substantively darker, and I mean, we can't be held responsible for them putting a color other than what had been projected to be on there. If it turns out that it's lighter, then that's probably on us. But you know, I guess we'll know when we get the color, and we can kind of make any kind of future decisions based on whether or not that color aligns with what's on the tower. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it still is very attractive. Mm-hmm. It's just a lost opportunity that people could be driving by and know exactly where they're at if they're not familiar with the area. So that's unfortunate.
Thanks, Chief. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Please state your name and address. Okay, we'll close public comment and move forward to council comments this evening. Councilmember Richards, why don't you start us off tonight?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm hoping that we all have a very productive week, this coming week, as we head for our annual Pumpkin Fest festivities. Myself, I had kind of a dull week last week because I didn't feel very good, but I managed to do a few things around town, such as taking pictures of our projects, the Heinonen Engineering Project, the island at the gas station, the Marathon Station. I took pictures of 115 and 117 today, okay, when they had the scissors lift out there and they were painting the exterior up at the top, which I thought was very ingenious, okay. Anyway, it's remarkable. The Heinonen project is the most interesting and amazing for future use. We'll see what happens. Anyway, moving on, okay. Our historical society, once we're having our annual excursion. We used to have a dinner, put on a dinner for ourselves and other guests. So we decided to quit doing that, and we arranged for a historical tour. I wasn't able to go last year, but we're going up to Holly to see another museum, I believe. Okay, the historic meeting of people up there from their society, and they're going to show us some of their houses, I assume, are historic points in the city. And that's going to be an exciting thing. I hope to go this year. That'll be the longest I've traveled in a vehicle, okay, to go up that far. We had for those of you that don't know about it, we had a very terrible accident involving a citizen at the railroad track last Friday. All I can say is the lady is a resident of town. She's 31 years old, and she lives in South Lyon Woods Trailer Park. And I'm not mentioning the name, okay, but it was a serious thing. And we all wish her the best on her recovery, okay? Anyway, I could go on with some other things, but that's enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To begin with tonight, I'd like to recognize Lieutenant Chris Sovic, Sergeant Doug Bakke, and Officer Audra Baker for participating in the Special Olympics law enforcement run on September 14th when they relayed the torch from 10 Mile and Pontiac Trail down to Pontiac Trail and Silver Lake Road. I want to thank you for your efforts and support of this worthwhile cause. Next, I'd like to remind everyone that of the soccer game between South Lyon High and South Lyon East that's going to take place Monday, October 1st. It's going to be held to highlight breast cancer awareness, and it'll be starting at 5:30 p.m. with the JV teams, followed at 7 o'clock for the varsity teams. There's also going to be a 50-50 raffle benefiting the Pink Fund, so let's turn out and support this worthwhile charity as well. Next, I'd like to mention that SEMCOG, the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, will be kicking off a campaign beginning October 1st to emphasize the need to walk, bike, and drive safe with a goal of reducing traffic fatalities and injuries throughout our region. I've worked with the Cable Commission here in town, and they'll be broadcasting public service announcements on our local television channel and be placing posts on social media to help support this effort and increase awareness of this initiative. So our thanks go out to Rich Perry, Stephen Kokkonen, and Amber King for your help with getting the message out for this initiative.
Way to go, guys.
And finally, I'd like to congratulate Jill French, the owner of Glazy Days, for celebrating 10 years in business in downtown South Lyon. I believe Glazy Days will also be offering some special deals during Pumpkin Fest this weekend, so stop in and see what they have to offer. Again, congratulations on your first 10 years in business, and wishing you many more years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Walton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't have a whole lot tonight to say. I want to remind everyone to get out to the Pumpkin Fest, enjoy it, make sure you get to the parade. I know those marching band kids also have the parade. They have competition this weekend. If you ever go to any of those, have a great time. They're great. The other thing I want to say is the Red Out football game. We earned over $900 to the American Heart Association. It was a great event. I was so excited to have been part of being there. And I want to thank all of our hardworking teenagers out there. There's a lot of kids that work after-school jobs in our businesses, whether it be, fast food, our coffee shops, our ice cream shops. They're all out there. They're all working really hard. They've spent all day at school, and now they're at a job. And I got to give them a lot of credit because they really try hard and they really do a good job. And I think they don't get enough credit for what they're out there doing. So, stop in, get a sandwich from Jimmy John's. They're really great. I can't speak enough about our teens out there. So, thank God for them because they're serving us up. All right, that's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Councilmember Parisian?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few things. Pumpkin Fest obviously is this weekend. If you have time, they are still taking volunteers, so you can still register to volunteer, and every volunteer counts. We need you. Additionally, part of Pumpkin Fest, the kickoff to the Pumpkin Fest parade is the annual run, and registration is open for 2 more days. Again, this is one of my favorite runs. It's www.slxc.com/pumpkinfest. So if you go onto the website and register, you only have 2 days to do so, but it is a very cool race. You kick off the Pumpkin Fest parade, so you kind of spearhead it as it's going through town, which is very cool. And they always have the coolest shirts. I just want to say that as well. Whoever the designer is, the logo, it's very, very cool. And lastly, I'm so happy that Bob Martin made an appearance tonight. And I didn't get a chance to say it during public comment, but it almost felt like he was home for a second there. So thank you, Bob Martin, for coming back just to say hello and just to thank us all. But really, we should be thanking you for all the things that you still continue to do in our community. We are so lucky to have you in our community. Even as a resident, you're still very much hands-on, and the thank you really goes back out to you. With that, have a good night.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I would like to thank you for the invitation to attend the last South Lyon High School football game. It was great to hear your voice all over the football field, and you are a real professional behind the microphone. That is a real talent, to be able to manage the microphone, to be able to call the plays, to learn the players' football numbers on both teams. I think all of us were just like, how does this individual do this? And then you did an after show sort of interview, and I think everybody was just so impressed with your knowledge of the sport, your knowledge of the players, and very, very, very impressed. So I want to thank you for everything that you do for the community, not only here at the city council meetings, but what you do to really make those football games truly, truly enjoyable. Also, I want to thank all the volunteers that were at the football game, the parents, the grandparents who sold tickets, who monitored the gates, sold items at the concession stands. It is unbelievable the amount of volunteers that this community has and what it takes to put on a football game at South Lyon High. So I want to thank all the parents and the grandparents that were out there 2 Fridays ago for everything that they did. I also had an opportunity to meet the new school resource officer for the South Lyon High School, Officer Dorkin. What an incredible individual he is. And actually, myself and Rose Walton, Councilwoman Rose Walton, we had to wait in line to meet him because he was swarmed by the students that were introducing him to their friends and to their parents. It was incredible. This guy already has a fan club. So I was very, very impressed with him. He was just very, very committed to the students in South Lyon. In fact, I was surprised to learn that the Oakland County Sheriff was all over the football field, as they are now the law enforcement agency at all the football games. And everybody I spoke to was absolutely excited to see the Oakland County Sheriff over there at the football games. So thank you, Sheriff Bouchard. Thank you for the gentleman that you sent in for this football team, for the football game, including Officer Dorkins. As to Pumpkin Fest, I want to remind everyone that the craft show is at Bartlett Elementary. I also want to thank all the volunteers who are going to be working at the chicken barbecue from 11:30 till 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the United Methodist Church. This will be a sellout. It always is. and they do a takeout. This is a fabulous barbecue dinner. I usually get 4 takeouts, 2 for Saturday and 2 for Sunday. I will tell you, this will be a sellout event. So if you want to get a chicken dinner, get over there early. I'd also like to thank Pete's True Value for installing an American flag out in front of their business. Also, Peter's True Value also offers a military discount to veterans. So please, everybody, shop local and remember the good patriots at Peter's True Value Hardware Store located within the city limits of South Lyon. And last, we are all waiting with anticipation for our new city manager, Paul Zelnak, to come and take his seat here in council chambers. We only have maybe about a week to go. I know the surrounding communities can hardly wait for him to arrive. I know the employees are anxious, and I know I am, so I think it's going to be very, very exciting for everybody to have a new face in town. Everybody has a lot of confidence in him, and everybody is waiting for him to come into the city. So we only have another week to go, so we're almost out of the fog. Other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for inviting us into your home this evening. Have a great week. Please go to Pumpkin Fest. I want to meet everybody. I think you're going to have a great time. It's going to be just a super weekend to be in South Lyon and not go home until Monday morning. So thank you.
Councilmember Kivel?
Just wanted to bring everybody up to date that the city staff has, we all ended up having Attorney Tom Fleury provide an entertaining training session for city employees to get an understanding of state and federal civil rights laws that prohibit discrimination. So we're all read in. This is something that was absolutely needed, simply to be compliant as every other business has an interest in doing so. And Tom made it fun. You could see he was animated about giving that presentation. I wanted to kind of piggyback on Mr. Donahue's comments, 115, 117. The building's looking very nice. I want to thank Mr. Borgman for making the investment in our community, for his efforts to dress the place up and to preserve that wonderful structure. So I'm delighted that he's come to our backyard, and that's terrific. Great work there. And of course, this weekend is Pumpkin Fest. Everybody get down there. You're going to have a great time. Hopefully we'll have the weather that's commensurate with an event like that. If not, it's still a lot of fun if you're a little chilly. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have much either tonight. I'm going to stay with the Pumpkin Fest because it's really, growing up here, I don't know if there's a better time of the year to be in the neighborhood for Pumpkin Fest and football and fall being here. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone out there over the weekend and definitely talking with everyone and just soaking it all in. So I'm looking forward to that. Really quickly, I did get an email from Susan Martin, and I told her that I would read that tonight. It was in regarding to the water department and program they're doing in October. The City of South Lyon Water Department is hosting an environmental and public health seminar, Drinking Water and Wells, on Wednesday, October 10th, 2018, from 2 o'clock to 2:45 in the South Lyon City Hall auditorium right here, located at 335 South Warren Street. Our speaker is Kimberly DeMars, RS, a senior public health sanitarian with the Oakland County Health Division's Environmental Health Services. Topics will include on-site septic systems, ensuring safe drinking water, wells, well components, and the role of the Oakland County Health Division plays in regulation. There will be a question and answer period after the seminar. All of this is sponsored by the Wellhead Protection Program, Water Department, City of South Lyon. If you have any questions, please reach out to them at 437-4006. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn this evening.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, all.
Good meeting, Dan.
Thank you.